Good evening, folks. This is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. And how nice. I got my sound to work. Let me just fix my switchboard there and make sure that I'm not echoing myself. There we go. All right. I think I'm ready now, folks. And I'm just it's the end of a very busy Tuesday. I'm going to be pouring myself a little Dalmore 15 for this evening's proceedings. So I heard about this Laura Owens autism diagnosis. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know if she's self-diagnosed. I don't know if she went to a doctor and got a professional diagnosis. I have no idea. I know all of you have all of the questions and thoughts and concerns. Mine is that, I actually caught Lauren Knighty, her video last night. I didn't watch it yet. I didn't watch it yet on purpose because I didn't want to be influenced by anybody else's thoughts. And I've seen a lot of your thoughts in the comments. My main question is this the point where she's going to start taking full responsibility for the things that she's had? The little snippet I caught when Lauren was on with Bruce from Oregon was that maybe this was because there's a criminal investigation pending with respect to her, and that was the reason why she wanted to kind of give an explanation into her modus operandi as she maneuvered a bogus pregnancy through the paternity system over there in Arizona. And so the title of this article, I was just diagnosed with autism, and it explains everything. So there's a part of me that wants to see Laura Owens get help. It's not just a part, it's like the whole part. I don't want her to suffer unnecessarily. Now look, the universe is set up as such that it's coming for her. Whatever she's projected out, it's on the ready. I'm not here to join on to those that want to crucify and drag Laura Owens, and punish her any more than, look, that's going to happen regardless. I'm more interested in her mode of thinking. If she's now finally of the opinion that, you know what, I got some issues. I don't think that there's many people out there that I've discussed this case with on a professional level. They don't believe that on some level she has some form of mental illness. And I have opined that not only does she have a mental illness, but she went through a whole litany of lawyers in this case until she found one that was going to be willing to express and argue her lies, regardless of the evidence. And in a very modern way, just start spouting out lies. And well, if you say it enough times, and maybe people will start to believe it, maybe you'll start to confuse some folks. That happens in a lot of areas of life. It hasn't happened with the Owens case. And so many of you know that I have a daughter that's been diagnosed as autistic. When she was diagnosed autistic, she was 2 years old. It was right around her second birthday. And we were told, at that time, she was, the whole thing nonverbal. She was extremely autistic. It was her symptoms were severe, was what we were being told. And we didn't know what quality of life she was going to have. We didn't know if she was going to be affected at all. The doctors on the one hand were telling us that she was severely autistic. And on the other hand, they were saying that, hey, she might grow up to be a perfectly normal high school kid and you will have never known that she was autistic. She went through bouts of ABA therapy and special schools and constantly developing her motor skills and her speech skills to the point where you can't get her to shut up. She is just a ball of curiosity and extremely intelligent. And yeah, she's really blunt and direct, but she has ideas about this world, man. And she sees it a very specific way. In the course of researching autism, I took a self-diagnostic test And I'm wondering if this is the way that Laura has diagnosed herself. I took a test and it said that with a very high level of probability, I'm probably autistic. I'm like 44 years old now. Have I ever been formally diagnosed? No, no, I have not. Do I care to get formally diagnosed for what? I'm here. Like, what purpose would it serve me other than to relate to my daughter who has been formally diagnosed? I can just tell you that a lot of the traits that my daughter has that today people were labeling as symptoms of autism, I exhibited to a very high degree, almost exactly the way that she exhibited him, up to about age 5. And then I grew up with a very specific, deliberate style of acquiring knowledge, the same way that she has. And it certainly blinded me to certain aspects of social life. If I was indeed autistic, I don't know. I was definitely a weird kid. And it took me a while to gain my footing, and I did. And, I made it okay. Whether or not I'm autistic, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need it to justify anything. However, I will say that my daughter, Olivia, who is diagnosed autistic, you would never guess that she was diagnosed with anything. She looks and very much gives the appearance of a normal 5-year-old child embarking on her kindergarten career, playing in the playground, doing her science experiments, reading her books, singing her songs, the whole thing. But I guess the bigger question is if she is indeed autistic and it's going to manifest itself in ways that are specific to her, what does that mean for her as an adult? Would it prompt her to grow compulsive towards relationships to the point where, such as Laura Owens has, she's making threats of having a fake baby born out of a fake pregnancy unless you agree to date me, in which case I'm sure she would have got herself fake abortion receipts, I guess, to justify the payment's been made, the transaction has been concluded. I don't know, man. I hope that that's not the case. But not Lauren. By the way, Lauren Nighty is a student. She's 31 years old. She's been invited to come on the show, as she's been many times, and I got summarily turned down. So thanks for that, Lauren. No, but it's cool. I really wanted this to be just my raw reaction to what Laura has to say. Because look, I want her to be okay. I want her to succeed. I want her to come out of this. She's going to pay consequences no matter what. But I don't want bad things to happen to her. Like, I feel like there's a whole segment of society where all she would really have to do is apologize. Just say you're sorry. Come clean. And, it would open up a whole other universe of opportunity for her. And the longer that she wants to carry on or perpetuate lies, well, the more the people are going to come out with the pitchforks and, treat her accordingly. So I will get into this article. I'm going to see what she has to say. Have not read it. I wanted to share my raw thoughts on what she has to say. I'm really giving her the benefit of the doubt for, I don't know, maybe the 12th time since I've been introduced to Miss Owens and this case. So let's see what she has to say. By the way, this says this is like a 15-minute read, which means it's probably going to take me about an hour to get through it. Anyway, she says, so growing up, and she prefaces this with a picture of her looking very not pregnant, healthy. She's smiling. I don't know how recent that picture is. One thing that I do know from some of the insiders that are involved into looking up evidence in this case is that she is involved in a very lengthy and thorough criminal investigation in the state of Arizona. There is a very real possibility that she is looking at real jail time. Do I think that she's going to go to jail? No, I don't. But I know that she's going to get something. I know that they're not just hand waving this away as a non-story. There is a very legitimate investigation that is going on to Miss Owens that I suspect is hampering individuals' efforts into obtaining certain documents. But that news is forthcoming. She says, growing up, I was the shy one in a family of big personalities. Both of my parents were talk show hosts, able to command every room they walked into, and my sister was the life of every party, always surrounded by people who adored her. And me, I stayed on the sidelines, painfully shy, terrified to speak up, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. I wanted so badly to feel comfortable in my own skin, to move through life with the ease and confidence they seemed to have. I tried. God, did I try. I devoured every self help book I could find, convinced that if I worked hard enough, I could fix the part of me that couldn't come out of my shell. I wanted so badly to be different. I spent my entire life trying to change. I forced myself into uncomfortable situations, hoping to become the person everyone expected me to be. I read every self help book I could find. I went to daily workout classes, started a podcast, gave a TED talk, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I could mold myself into someone confident, someone outgoing, someone who felt at home in their own skin. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was missing the rule book life that everyone else had been given. I find that my daughter, I feel at 5 years old, is starting to feel. Um, I don't know how much she feels those social anxieties, but I definitely sense that it's going to become a thing. I know that for myself personally, when I was growing up from ages 5 to about teenager, I had a lot of these same thoughts that Laura has. I think that these thoughts are not uncommon to most adults. Most people have to figure out how to navigate social life, society, how to stick out in a family of big personalities. Lots of families have big personalities. And so I get it. And I could relate to her when she says she's trying to find her footing. I sympathize with the first couple of paragraphs. And I know that there's a segment of you out there probably in the comments right now, and I apologize for not reading all of the comments. But I know that there is a segment of you out there that is loath to believe any word that she has to say, and that's, for good reason. Laura Owens has built up a certain amount of currency with the general public, and it's not very high. And so I get it. I'm giving her a benefit of the doubt with this article. So let's continue. So the truth is, I missed out on so much because of it. I canceled dinners with friends because of the thought of social interaction, even though I desperately wanted to see them, drained me before I even left the house. Friends saw me as unreliable, and relationships ended. I even missed my sister's bachelorette party because, despite her being maid of honor, because the idea of being on for an entire weekend, even though I would have been surrounded by people I loved, left me exhausted before it even started. I know for a fact that there's many of you in the listening audience who have been diagnosed autistic and are, you were adults. And a lot of you have reached out to me and you feel a lot of these same things. The whole having to rev up for a public appearance, having to go to we're going to go to the wedding and you're going to be around people all day. You got to mentally prepare for all those things. These are not uncommon things about people that have these social anxieties related to autism. They're also not uncommon for people that are just natural introverts. Now, she says it wasn't just shyness or introversion. Certain sounds overwhelmed me, even if they weren't loud. They could even make me feel physically ill. Sudden changes threw me into a panic. The smallest shift in routine could derail me, leaving me unable to function for hours, sometimes days. I thrived on routine and could eat the same meals for weeks or even months at a time. Over the years, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and PTSD. Each one explained a piece of the puzzle, but never the whole picture. Then, after my life fell apart in ways I could never have imagined, I found out the truth. I have high functioning autism. I don't know what the medical standards were back when Laura Owens was a child, whenever she was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, and PTSD. Just so you know, as an attorney, when I see these 4 diagnoses specifically offered to me as a potential reason for somebody's behavior in a case that I'm working, it's an immediate internal eye roll. Everybody that I've ever worked with, I swear to God, has been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD. Oh, and then the other party thinks that they're also a narcissist. I don't know. I certainly, when I was a child, I had symptoms of these 4 things. They sent me to special classes. Nobody ever considered that autism was a thing, but it was like the 80s. Even in the 90s, I was already in high school. I don't remember it being such a big deal back then. I think Jim Kelly's son, the football player, Buffalo Bills, a quarterback, his son had autism. And then there was like this whole campaign rallying around his son. That was like in 92, 93, back when the Bills were going to Super Bowls. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of literature out there. So I'm always skeptical when I see these 4 diagnoses all together, just because I've been an attorney long enough where I know 90% of the time it's bullshit. 90% of the time, it's just people trying to explain bad behavior. 90% of the time, it's people trying to gain sympathy from the courts or the attorneys or the other party or whatever. And I know that a lot of you are already of the opinion that Laura is doing this to gain sympathy from the investigative authorities, perhaps. Maybe. But I'm going to hear her out. By the way, that's her and her sister right there. Just when they were adorable little girls, when none of this was even a thing. She says I have blah. I can't talk. I apologize. He says I have high functioning autism. So autism wasn't something I ever thought could describe me. I always assumed it meant struggling with emotions or missing social cues, things I never had trouble with. I understand humor. I connect deeply with people. I always felt everything. But what I didn't realize was how much I was working behind the scenes just to keep up. Autism for me wasn't about being disconnected. It was about how hard I was pushing myself to handle things others seemed to manage easily. I wonder what the autistic members of my audience think of that specific paragraph. Because I find that most people that have been diagnosed with autism, it mostly is about just the disconnection. It's one thing, like you're not so concerned about things on the outside when you're autistic. You're not so concerned about anything outside of your immediate bubble. Like people that have actual genuine autism have this ability to separate themselves from any environment just about and at any time. Now, obviously, there's corollaries to that. There's variance there. There's people that genuinely are bothered by sensory things and sounds and touch, and they're generally physically affected by that. But others that don't have those deep symptoms, they'll show in other ways, but they will have an innate ability to ignore everybody around and just be in their own little bubble, not bothered by what's on the outside. My daughter does that. Olivia does that. She could sit by herself. I mean, she doesn't do so much anymore because she's always playing with her sister. But back when her symptoms were worse, she would sit with a toy or in her own little corner, and she would be there for hours. And you would be calling her, and you would be, calling out to her and trying to get her attention. But no, she was laser focused on what was in front of her. I used to do the same thing when I was a child. I used to sit in the corner, and I would play with pencils for hours in my own little fantasy world for hours and hours, not be bothered. I wouldn't need food. I wouldn't need anything. I would be in my own environment. And hey, Dominic, is that you?
Yeah.
What's up, buddy?
What's up?
I texted Dominic as I was about to go on live. Apologies for doing that, man. I didn't know if I was going to go on or not. But
no, you're good.
Also, I was busy and stuff. All right, continuing with this article. So she says, I think I read this part already. Then my life completely fell apart. After a year of celibacy, I found myself staring at a positive pregnancy test. Okay. Here we go. It was 11 days after I hooked up with my then. All right, I'm already out. Okay, you guys try to warn me about the spoiler alert. Yeah, spoiler alert. She's not taking responsibility. So we're going to continue on with this narrative. Okay, I guess. Man, I felt like we were getting somewhere. I felt like we were actually going to start breaking ground with Laura Owens. And then how long did it take me? I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. The first third of this article. And now here we go. Now she's staring at a positive pregnancy test that she knows is bullshit. So we're going to press on with that narrative. That's disappointing. But okay. She says, I went to urgent care to get the pregnancy confirmed. And by the way, what does anything that she just mentioned in the first third of that article have to do with her staring at a pregnancy test? The potential pregnancy of Clayton Eckert. What does that have to do with everything that she just said? She's going to have to tie this in somehow, even if it's a pure fantasy. I even provided him access to my patient portal so he could verify it himself. In response, he texted me a list of options like it was a business transaction. I would like for you to get an abortion. If you do not, that's your choice. Either you'll take 100% custody of the child or it will be put up for adoption, he said. Then later, one of us will have 100% custody. There will be no joint custody. Oh, Laura, why? I tried, man. I really tried. One of us will have 100% custody. There will be no joint custody. He ended the conversation by saying that he would talk to me when the time came to take a prenatal paternity test that would come weeks later. Now, what she's not mentioning is that Clayton had reason to believe that this was all bullshit because they had only oral sex at the time. And he had other reasons for being skeptical. He thought this was a bogus pregnancy all along. And there was a lot of other stuff going on. K-Rob, thank you so much for the $1.99. Says, please share your screen. Whose screen? That came in at 450. Was I not sharing my screen, Dominic?
Yeah, no, I just added it right now.
Oh, well, good looking out, man.
Come.
All right, so she goes to urgent care, the whole thing. So a couple of weeks later, he texted me to invite me to his apartment to talk, saying, I feel God is telling me we should meet up. I thought we might finally be able to make a decision together about the pregnancy, something we could navigate as adults. I hoped that maybe the pressure wouldn't be solely on me anymore, that together we could do what was best for all involved. But when I arrived, instead of a conversation, he handed me a pregnancy test he had bought and asked me to take it in front of him. I did, and it came back positive. There was medical reasons for that. I forgot specifically what they were, but it was because of, I forgot why it was. It was some kind of a condition she had or some kind of a medication she was taking that caused her HCG levels to falsely elevate. Cages with the 5 says, just wait, Omar, you will see some parts that sound as if written by a certain snake like person. Don't say his name, who must not be Beetlejuice. Gingras juice. I know who you're talking about. I'll do my best. All right, so let me just see where I left off. But when I arrived, static made me pee on a stick. Let's call it an HCG test because we know she was never pregnant. In his deposition, Clayton admitted to buying the test, but later calls it an H. You know, he was angry. Justifiably so. So when asked directly if the box indicated it was a pregnancy, he replied, yeah, sure, I guess. That's what they market it as for people who are actually truthful and take these tests And don't lie, another answer could have been that is one of the uses of an HCG test, among the many. He even doubled down in a recent interview with Reality Steve, saying it's known as a pregnancy test for most people, but not her. Well, I would say, given what we know about that case, it was completely fair. All that test showed, according to expert testimony at trial, was that she had HCG levels that were elevated, but it was not indicative of an actually pregnant person, because in order to find somebody pregnant, you would have to have a series of tests and have to note a certain, I don't know, levels. There was medical reasons. In other words, one HCG test is not enough to confirm. There has to be a series. That's why as soon as you get pregnant or you have a positive HCG test, they say, hey, come to the doctor's office for further testing, prenatal vitamins, the whole thing, so that we can make sure that there's not a miscarriage or some other nefarious result. We need to make sure that you're actually pregnant, maybe by sticking up a scope up there to visually verify pregnancy. So I know she's mad at Clayton for doing that, but he was justified. So the day after seeing the test results with his own eyes, Clayton finally seemed to accept reality. He texted me, I wanted you to come over to confirm what I was doubting, so I don't see you as a liar anymore. For a brief moment, I thought we were finally on the same page, and maybe there was a way forward. He even said, I'm going to try to give us a chance this week. I'm keeping an open mind, and maybe this weekend we can meet back up and see if it's a possibility to be intimate. I'm really trying to have you feel seen and heard, so I want to give it a chance your way. At least at the end of it, I'll know I tried everything I could. I don't remember where this was in the grand scheme of all the text messages that came out between them and the timeline of events. I just know that there was definitely a period of time where Clayton, though he had his suspicions, was like, but what if she is? Like, what if it's like a miracle and she got pregnant through oral sex, sitting on a toilet seat or something? I'm sure that thought genuinely crossed his mind. She literally peed on the test and it came out positive. What else am I supposed to do? And so Clayton, not wanting to be a deadbeat dad, I'm assuming, said he's keeping an open mind and trying to do all this kind of stuff. In the meantime, what she's not disclosing is all the stuff that she was emailing him in return, where she's basically trying to manipulate him into a relationship, which to me is almost the most egregious part of all of this. It's like, you know what? You don't want to date me? Then I'm keeping it. If you do agree to go on a date with me, then I will get an abortion. It is up to you. You hold the life of this child in your hands, which is a shitty thing to do to anybody. That's what she did. Never mind the tight vagina texts or emails, whatever. She was saying a lot of things. But in the moral scorecard, on the moral bingo card of this case, I think that there was more than enough justification for Clayton to have said something like this. And by the way, it's being very selective, which I guess is fair. You know, there's a lot of people that have written a lot of things. She is well within her right to write this in the light that is most beneficial to her. The problem with that is anybody that's invested in this case, which is at this point, everybody that has been invested in this case has already seen it. I don't think that there's very many new catchers on with this case. I just don't see it. This case has run its course. There's been a full trial. It's been litigated to a final judgment. There's an appeal going on. Nobody cares because nobody thinks that is a serious shot and that it has any serious shot at appeal. None. And I have thoughts about the attorney taking on that appeal and how I believe if anything has happened to Laura Owens to be victimized in this case, it's at the hands of her current counsel, David Gingras. But, you know, I guess, like, what are you going to do, man? She had like 4 or 5 different attorneys. Every single one of them turned her down because they were not going to try to advocate on the basis of lies. There was one attorney that said, hey, in the interest of candor, I did not know that all this shit was fake at the time I made the following arguments. And then he's correcting everybody's perceptions of whatever it is they think that he did. Gingras, on the other hand, was like, hey, I'll tell you what, I got $100,000 retainer. I have no idea how much his retainer is. I'm making it up. He had some kind of retainer. Family had deep pockets. They were willing to pay the retainer. And he sold her on a bill of goods, saying, I will get this done. I will do that done. I'm going to file all these motions. I'm going to get the case dismissed. It's going to do this and that, whatever. And then he just completely, in the most spectacular way imaginable that I've ever seen in a family law case, ate shit so spectacularly. The meltdown was so spectacular. It was only a 2-hour trial, but it sticks out in my mind for how cringe it was if you were Gingras making those arguments. It was so disastrous. Nothing went right in that trial whatsoever. From the time they showed up in the parking lot where they start making 911 calls because there's people that have been subpoenaed to testify in the case that may have had restraining orders in the state of California. Somehow it was a violation of those orders. Bomb squads were called. I don't know if Gingras called a bomb squad. I don't think he did, but whatever happened, there was wayward judges. There was failed pre-trial motions. Laura Owens threw a tantrum during cross-examination and almost just completely broke down. There was lots of things going on at trial. It was a spectacular flame out. And the idea that he was going to try to do that, a couple of post-judgment motions, and now, you know what? Notice of appeal, we're going to try all these issues. And I promise you, he's not doing that for free. I promise you, he's getting paid a pretty penny, to lodge this appeal on Owens' behalf. He's probably getting somewhere north of six figures for what he knows is a losing argument. He's going to write it up. He's going to type it all nice and neat. It's going to be somewhere 40 to 50 pages long with additional pages for exhibits. It's probably going to die before it ever hits oral argument because there's just not any genuine triable issues that I can distinguish. And if I'm wrong, I'll come in, I will come back and I will make a video and I will eat crow. But I've looked that thing up and down in terms of what he claimed were going to be the tribal issues. And none of them hold any weight on a legal basis. None of his allegations are credible. But for maybe one accurate finding that Judge Mata actually might have mistaken the testimony of one of the experts in the case. Turns out that little minor hiccup was so tangential, so inconsequential to the final judgment that it just doesn't matter. Which, by the way, is one of the requirements. It has to be more than error. It has to be more than, it's not enough to say there's an error. It has to be harmful error. In other words, error that would have changed the final result. You take away that little tidbit, it doesn't change a damn thing. So anyway, moving on with this letter. How much longer is this, by the way? Let me make sure I don't, Jesus Christ, I got to speed this up, don't I? All right. I will hurry up. Enough of me talking. All right. So he says, I think I got to this part when I arrived. He says, take this. Okay, but not her. Everything I could. All right. So for the first time, I felt like I might be getting clarity I so desperately needed. But within hours, everything changed again. He told me he had prayed about it and received an answer that we were not meant to be together in any capacity. That's a pretty good line when you're dating somebody that you don't want to be a part of anymore, that you're just trying to find a nice way to end it. Look, I prayed about it. God said, I'm all wrong for you. So I wish you the best of luck, and Godspeed in all of your ventures. He added, God has spoken to me that it is your body and your choice. Therefore, I am not going to ask for you to get an abortion. However, that is my preference personally. So given his sudden change of heart, I thought maybe he was overwhelmed, uncertain, or just needed time to process everything. Any man in that scenario would be overwhelmed. and needing time to process. In my mind, if he had been open to getting to know each other once, if he was willing to see if we could figure out how to be parents together, or at least co-parent peacefully, there was a chance he might reconsider. But imagine being forced into a relationship to somebody that you're just not that into, man. It's really hard to fake that kind of stuff. It's really hard to fake being into a relationship with somebody that you just don't want to be with. So loathe it be the person that tries to force a relationship on somebody unwilling. You're setting yourself up for a monumental failure and disappointment. But this was the nature of Laura Owens. So she has these fantasies. If only we get to know each other, then if only he sees how tight my vagina is. She had the best of intentions, I guess. But months later, Clayton leaked those private conversations to the public, and the newly formed Justice for Clayton group latched on to what they sensationalized as a dating contract. Bullshit, that was not a dating contract. You want to know what a contract is nothing more than you have two people, and one of those people makes an offer to the other person and says, I offer you this in exchange for this. And the offer was literally, I will get an abortion if you agree to date me. That would be called the gosh, I can't think of the word. That would be called the benefit that you're getting. And the benefit for the bargain, basically. So if you agree to date me, I will get an abortion. That is nothing more than an offer. Had he agreed to that, now it's probably not a legal contract, but that's essentially what it was, a dating contract. I will date you so that you will get an abortion. If you don't date me, then I'm keeping the kid and I'm going to open a paternity test and I'm getting you for child support. If that's not a contract, if that is not a basic rudimentary contract, orally made, of course it's not enforceable, but that is an oral contract that was made for the benefit of both parties, and it is perfectly, you could write that in a bar exam in the state of California, say that, look, this was the offer, this was the acceptance, this is what they were exchanging, this is what she was getting, this was he was getting. You would say that yes, it was a contract, and then you would have to argue about, well, it's not enforceable though because of all these things. It was a contract. It was a dating contract. That's exactly what it was. I got too many tabs open. So he says, where did I leave off? Justice for Clayton. Right, dating contract. So they distorted my genuine efforts to find a way forward, twisting it into a narrative that I was trying to extort him into a relationship. In reality, all I wanted was to explore every option, from trying to parent together to finding a way to co-parent respectively, before we were left with only the hardest choices. So in an effort to get Clayton involved in the decision-making process, I invited him and his family to 5 different OBGYN appointments that she would then later cancel. I hope that hearing directly from a doctor might make the situation more real for him, might push him to finally engage with the pregnancy. Maybe, just maybe, he'd step up, except every time she made an appointment, she would cancel it. And she never told him the exact location, because what she stated under oath was, well, I didn't want him to start, I was afraid of what he might do. Like it was going to start flipping over tables or something. These are things that she said under oath. So she's changing the narrative just a little bit. But each time they showed no interest, and I couldn't bring myself to face it alone. I canceled the appointment. That is such a load of bullshit. Suffocated by the thought of sitting there by myself, overwhelmed by the uncertainty and the pressure. Maybe part of me wasn't ready to face it either. Cages says, we have the contract. In the contract, LO herself used the word contract. She debunks herself. I don't have it right in front of me to verify whether or not it had the word contract in it, but there was an offer and there was an acceptance, and they were exchanging stuff for goods. K-Rap, thank you for the 10. Says Laura's not autistic. She read what she thinks. Lets her fake it, but got the most basic facts wrong. This is just a repeat of I'm pregnant. Attempts to get her to prove it will be HIPAA violation. Well, that's probably true. There's actually a lot of truth to what you're saying. What's up, Bruce? Bruce says she did call it an NDA pretty much. Oh, yeah, there was the extortion. Drop all of the stuff and I'll drop this other case, which is one of the reasons why she's being investigated by the DA, as a matter of fact. Okay, continuing. When it became clear that trying to work things out directly with Clayton wasn't going, she just wants to relitigate all of this stuff. This is stuff that people have already made up their minds about, but she's relitigating this in her head. Now, look, she hasn't been very active on this platform for a while, at least not that I'm aware. But the thought that she keeps on replaying this over and over and over and over again, as if she was literally in prison with nothing better to do, is kind of sad. So when it became clear that trying to work things out directly with Clayton wasn't going anywhere, I decided to take a more structured approach. I paid a lawyer $5,000 to step in as a middleman, hoping that with professional guidance, we could come up with a clear parenting plan, something that would provide structure and remove the constant uncertainty. By the way, I've definitely seen paternity cases get filed before the child is born, but not within the first couple of weeks. That was red flag number one. In the cases that I've seen with paternity cases prior to birth, they're usually like 4, 5, 6, 7 months long. You usually have a viable pregnancy at that point. There's not any question as to the legitimacy of the pregnancy. This was allegedly filed within a couple of weeks of her learning, allegedly, that she was pregnant. So I decided that the next logical step was to file a paternity case. I thought it would force him to come up with his idea of a schedule, see that the court encouraged joint custody so kids could have both parents in their lives, even if the relationship between those parents did work out, and compel him to take a prenatal paternity test. Oh, this is almost like a painful to read. So after filing, I paid $725 for a paternity test at the lab Clayton had chosen, fully expecting him to schedule his portion, but he didn't. He ignored calls and emails from the lab to pick a date. I was forced to get a refund, but she did get a refund. I didn't want to go to the media to pressure Clayton. Oh, yeah, remember that one? To take accountability, but it felt like my only option at that point, the single stupidest thing she could have possibly done. I wasn't seeking attention or fame, far from it. I even asked to remain anonymous, and I wasn't after Clayton's money. He was my realtor, and if he'd followed through with submitting the 2 offers he claimed to have made on my behalf, he would have earned his commission, but that's another story. The problem with that is she threatened that I think she had sued him for whatever those issues were, and saying that I would drop this case if you agree to drop this other stuff, which is basically illegal extortion. So I thought the public pressure would compel him to take a DNA test. I don't think it was needed in this case. I think that Clayton had demonstrated that he was ready and willing to take a paternity test. You just had to show him where to go, show up. But by her own testimony, she would tell him she was going to get these tests and then pull the rug out. It's like, you know what? No, I don't want you to know the location because I don't know what you're going to do. But she's continuing to hold on to this narrative. So when the news hit the press, Clayton denied that her one-night stand resulted in a pregnancy, and millions believed him. But it's not just they're taking Clayton's word over hers, because historically, and this is also the case in family courts, most courts and most people, when a woman says that I'm pregnant with twins, and this guy doesn't want anything to do with it, presumably will believe the woman, because why would they lie? For what? What would they lie about that for? When you tell a judge that I'm pregnant, they're going to take your word for it unless there's evidence to the contrary, which is why this case even existed. The reason why they started believing Clayton is because of all of the stuff that was being released. Regardless of how it was released, all of the stuff that was out there, there were so many holes in the story that it just was not believable what she was saying. And so where people started on Laura's side, they started to gravitate to Clayton's side, and that's how it became this group, Justice for Clayton. It was born out of all of the bullshit that was readily obvious to everybody in the public, and they wanted justice for Clayton because what is happening in him is unfair. And they wanted Laura Owens to be held to account. Folks, give me 30 seconds. I got to go get the door. Sorry, folks. Okay, so news hit the press. He denies one night stand. Why wouldn't? And they believed him. So why wouldn't they? He was a bachelor. Had nothing to do with it. I promise you that. There's been more famous douchebags out there that people have despised. The fact that he was the bachelor, nobody gives a shit. Honestly, it's they just wanted the truth. That's all. That's my read of it anyway. That's my opinion of it. Charming man handed out roses on TV. Most people that are aware of this show, I don't think most of them even watch The Bachelor, if I'm being honest. Meanwhile, I was painted as the manipulative, attention-seeking liar. They didn't know me. The irony, the Daily Beast once called Clayton the biggest F-boy in Bachelor history. Yet no one seemed to question his version of events. What does that have to do with whatever? This was the same man who, on the Vile Files, admitted that when I came over that night, we took our clothes off almost immediately and didn't put them back on until the next morning. He even talked openly about finishing twice that night. He's never denied that we hooked up or that I came over to take a pregnancy test in front of him. He confirmed all of that. But what he never agreed to was that he ever stuck his penis in your vagina. And we know that he never did. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to be telling him stories about the tightness of your vagina because he'd already know. So he might have confirmed that y'all were naked for a period of time, which I'm not judging anybody that takes their clothes off, even if it's, look, people do crazy things all the time. I'm not here to judge anybody's behavior. That doesn't make them more or less. He never stated to anybody, as far as I've ever been able to confirm, that you guys had actual intercourse or sex. That was the mind-blowing part of this case. If you give one singular tagline to get people interested in this case, it's, hey, woman claims to be pregnant with twins after only committing acts of oral copulation. I mean, hell, he finished twice. It could have been 20 times. I don't think the odds of her getting pregnant in that way would have increased much, if any. So after I miscarried, I tried to drop the case. There was no reason to continue it. Clayton had no legal fees, but Clayton hired an attorney, Greg Woodnick, who allegedly took on the case pro bono as part of a personal vendetta against me. Oh, I promise you that attorney has no personal vendetta against her. But I think that Clayton wanted to make sure that she was held to account for her lies. That's why this case continued the way that it did. He had represented an ex in a civil case I filed 2 years ago and objected to the case being dismissed. Judge Julianne Mata of the Maricopa County Superior Court agreed that the case dragged on for 8 horrendous months. In the courtroom, Judge Mata sat there seemingly enchanted by Clayton's flame. Give me an effing break, dude. It was like she couldn't see past the glitter of his role. I watched those proceedings, man. There was nothing out of the ordinary in those proceedings in terms of just the pure mechanics of it all whatsoever. Clayton, for whatever he is in life, was not affecting those proceedings, not one iota. Just, he wasn't. He wasn't. Absent the one time that he was actually representing himself in court during an order of protection hearing, judge duty or whatever, which I thought he did a pretty good job of representing himself. He didn't prevail, but he did pretty good. Other than that day, I don't think he affected the proceedings at all, because this case is elementary. It's pretty straightforward. They're accusing you of wasting everybody's time by bringing a frivolous paternity case, frivolous because you knew and had reason to know that your pregnancy was illegitimate. They were looking for attorney fees and costs, the same as any other person. If Clayton Eckert was just a normal guy, I suspect that it would have went the same way. In terms of judgment, I don't know if the attorneys would have been the same. I don't know if the dollar figures awarded would have been the same, but the end result would have likely been exactly the same with this set of facts, with that judge, and in that courtroom. Her father sat in the overflow room with the Justice for Clayton supporters. He allegedly called the case a circus, a shit show, while they laughed and fed off the spectacle. He wasn't the only one. It was like being on trial for something I couldn't even define, being myself. Not what you were on trial for. This lady is just so not autistic. Her sister followed Clayton on Instagram. How could I stand a chance? And her ruling, Judge Mata, wrote that no reasonable person would cancel appointments during a high-risk pregnancy. But what's reasonable when you're oh, give me a break. All right. All right. Oh. I'm so disappointed. Marina, thank you for gifting a Tilted Lawyer membership. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. And congratulations to Bruce from receiving a gifted membership. He could finally be part of the club as many times as he's been on the show. I'm just so knocked out by this sentence. What's reasonable when you're autistic? Could I just give you an example? When my daughter got a mosquito bite, she was so focused on the mosquito bite. She's genuinely been diagnosed as autistic. She needed a Band-Aid. She wanted to make sure she had like a medicated wipe to disinfect. And she asked to go see a doctor just to make sure that everything was okay so she didn't have an infection. She was so engrossed in her healing of a mosquito bite because she was just hyper focused on it. I'd imagine if she was in the midst of a high risk pregnancy, let's fast forward 20, 30 years or so, that she would be so hyper tuned to her physical health needs that, yeah, not only would she get the normal regular recommended checkups, but she'd probably be doing all of her own research. She'd probably be like part of these support groups. She'd probably like double up on her appointments. She would get appointments just because she needs the peace of mind. I'll tell you what, her autism would not prevent her from getting care, is all I'm saying. So, what's reasonable when you're autistic? When you're too afraid to face the situation on your own that you can't even walk into a doctor's office. This lady lives with her mom. From what I can tell, her mom enables Laura Owens to do whatever Laura Owens needs to do. You cannot tell me that that lady doesn't have a support group that doesn't expand internationally. She's got sisters. She's got parents with deep pockets. She's got a place to stay. She's got people defending her from law enforcement. She's got people presumably funding her attorney fees. She's got people that have given her a job to which she makes about $150,000 a year. I think that was the testified to amounts. There's no situation. There is not a scenario out there where Laura Owens is by herself. This paragraph is a load of bullshit. She didn't see me struggling to survive. She saw someone who didn't fit the narrow mold of what a reasonable woman should look like. Let me tell you something about the reasonable person standard in law. The reasonable person standard, all it means, it doesn't take into account your religion. It doesn't take into account your ethnicity. All it means is what a normal, regular, reasonable person would do in a given scenario. So if you see somebody dying on the ground of thirst, a normal, reasonable person, if they had the ability to, would probably give them a glass of water. And by the way, there is not a duty to do that. If you see somebody in peril, you don't have any legal duty to help them whatsoever. You don't. But would a reasonable person drive 200 miles an hour down a residential neighborhood? Probably not. That's the reasonable person standard. It is a benchmark. It's not meant to discriminate against people with autism. And by the way, if you are so affected with autism that you fall outside of the spectrum of reasonable people, then it absolutely allows for that analysis, which is why they say reasonable, absent any kind of egregious symptom that would take you out of the spectrum of reasonable. If you're so autistic that you're not prone to getting care, then, but what they knew about her was that she was faking ultrasounds. She was faking medical information, that she was going to all these other checkups. There was no evidence that she was so impaired by her autism that she couldn't step foot in a doctor's office all by herself. None whatsoever. Matter of fact, the evidence was to the contrary. It wasn't that she never went to the doctor's office. It's just the one that she went to was like so far and few between, it didn't make any sense. Why would you go to that one and not all these other ones if by your own admission, you're claiming you're in a high-risk pregnancy? That is not autism. That is not what reasonable people do. She knew enough to know better, which puts her squarely in under the reasonable person umbrella. That is all. Because if she had, for example, let's just say that she was mute, she was nonverbal, she had all of these tics, she needed to get around in a walker because she had impaired motor skills as a result of autism, I promise you, the analysis would have been completely different. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a lawyer. So she claimed that the petition was not filed in good faith. The definition of filing something in good faith is simply that you believe that there is a factual basis for you to file that petition. What the judge is saying when she said the petition was not filed in good faith was that she doesn't believe that Laura Owens believed that she was pregnant when she filed the petition. Why would she do something like that? Well, the question was answered because of the dating contract, because of the extortion, because of all of the reasons that this case was referred to the Maricopa County District Attorney's Office, for starters. The petition was not grounded in fact or based on law. The petition was filed for an improper purpose, such as to harass the other party, to cause an unnecessary delay, or to increase the cost of litigation to the other party. Well put. Lost Cake, thank you so much for the 5. Says, I have level 1 ASD, so-called high functioning. We tend to be very literal, direct, and honest. Whatever is going on with LO, autism is not the case. Look, Cakes, I don't mean to call you Cakes. Lost Cake, I don't know if I'm autistic or not, but my wife has very often accused me of being very blunt and harsh in my critiques of people and of her. And we jokingly, since I took that test, that the test basically said that I have with a very high probability, I probably have Asperger's or something. And I was like, oh, well, that explains why I'm such a dick. And then we laugh about it. We make a joke about it. My daughter is like that. She'll come out. If she doesn't like you, she will tell you that she doesn't like you. We tend to be very literal, direct, and honest, which, those tend to be my favorite kind of people in the world. So Lost Cake, you and I could be drinking buddies. If you're ever in the local barista, well, that's a coffee shop, isn't it? The local watering hole. How about that? Okay, so she claimed, we got to that part. So I tried to drop the case after I miscarried. The problem with that is, by the time we got to that part where she was now admitting that she wasn't pregnant and calling it a miscarriage, we'd been litigating this case for at least, I think it was 4 months at that point. And then Clayton's like, bullshit, you're not going to put me through 4 months of this and then just walk away like nothing ever happened. Then he filed a motion essentially for attorney fees and costs for her bad faith filings, and that's how we got to the famous trial that everybody talks about. She even went so far as said, I know false claim. Oh yeah, so I didn't read it. So she even went so far as to state that I knowingly presented a false claim, despite having not only the positive HCG test. You're never going to be able to explain to Laura Owens why one HCG test is not proof of a pregnancy. You're never going to. As many times as I've explained it, as many times as it's been explained to her, not by me, but the experts in her case, about why you don't take one singular HCG test without a series of HCG tests to confirm 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt a pregnancy. You don't, because there's multiple reasons for elevated HCG and the whole thing. But she's going to carry on with that story until the end of time. Katie, thank again for the 5. Says she's going to use people not believing that she has autism to victimize herself further. Maybe she has autism. It still wouldn't justify the lying. Well, the logical thread that she's trying to create that is somehow, well, where I thought that she was going with the autism diagnosis was, hey, I did a terrible thing. I misled people. I told some lies. I've been insecure about myself all of my life. I really wanted to have the perfect life. I envisioned it with Clayton Echard. I envisioned a world where we had these perfect twins. I've been dealing with depression. And you know what? Since I've been diagnosed autistic, all of my internal struggles are starting to make sense. And I just want to come out and say that I'm sorry to all of you, because I want to make peace with all of you now that I'm trying to make peace with me inside. And you know what? I need help. And I'm sorry. And I want to tell my story so that others could better understand how I got to this point and what we could do differently to make sure it never happens again. That's not the thread that she was on at all. And we learned that very early on. The thread that she chose was trying to justify Judge Mata's critiques of her. That's what I'm hearing. Well, I didn't do all the things that Judge Mata said I should do because I'm autistic, which is fundamental bullshit. Fundamental bullshit. There's no other way to say that. There's none. And so I did not see that coming. I didn't even see that, man. As many crazy twists and turns as there's been with this case, I did not see a world where Laura Owens took that position. I just didn't. I was actually really, I don't want to say I was happy. I was relieved when I saw the autism article. I didn't want to read it because I wanted to give my genuine expression of how I felt about it. I just really thought, maybe because I'm just too optimistic, that this was going to be some kind of a mea culpa to the world. Indeed, it is not. And I'm forced to try to consider what that means. Let me continue with this letter. So, as if that wasn't enough, she wrote that there was what appears to be a case of serial fabrications here and elsewhere by a petitioner. What serial fabrications? Let us count the ways. Let us count the ways. The case against Echard was the only paternity case I've ever filed in my life. It wasn't the number of paternity cases. It was the egregiousness of the singular case that you filed. There was no pattern of similar, if not identical behavior. How could she claim I had a history of this when there was absolutely no basis for it because of her history of doing similar things with other boyfriends that had made its way into evidence? Hey, Bruce, thanks for the 5. It says, Clayton retained Team Woodnick November 2nd. Lexi filed to dismiss December 28th. Laura saw Woodnick coming and tried to run. That is true. It's funny. I've heard people criticize Woodnick's handling of the initial case that he was involved in with Owens, because of a lot of different reasons. But the case and how he handled it with Echard was just aces, man. He got it completely right the second time around. Judge Mata ignored the science. She did not ignore the science. She specifically leaned on the science. Ignored the medical records. No, she leaned on the medical records. Ignored the HCG positive blood and urine test because they didn't come in a series. which would have been required according to the science, all proving I was pregnant. She didn't care about the facts. What she cared about was how I acted, how I fidgeted, how my voice trembled, how I fell apart under the weight of it all, because you were caught in multiple lies. You were caught in lies so egregious that you were literally making shit up on the stand at trial, which is the number one sign, if you're looking for predictors about who's going to win the case, who's making shit up on a crossing examination. That's a pretty good indicator of who's winning and losing. And for that, she referred me to the county attorney and awarded $149,000 judgment to Clayton for his legal fees, which had allegedly accrued over the 8 months after I tried to dismiss. Oh, I saw the account. It was pretty well done. My attorney, David Gingras, and I are appealing this ruling. Laura, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you. This guy, Gingras, is a snake. I don't know what your relationship is with Gingras. I don't know what you guys discuss in private quarters. I'm just telling you, as another family law attorney that's been around a really long time, not as long as Gingras, but for about 11 years now, that this guy is bad news. And if I don't know how many people are trying to get you off of this narrative, but the more that you stick to this narrative, the worse it's going to be for your life, the worse it's going to be for your soul, and there's not much more I can say about it. And so maybe it's an act of futility that I even try to put out that statement, but this guy is bad for you. And you carrying on with this case is going to deteriorate you from the inside out. But I'll continue with your letter. So if it isn't overturned, have I unknowingly opened the door to something far more dangerous? Oh, here we go. Where a woman's right to file a paternity case can be used against her. Listen, in the 11 years I've been doing this, paternity tests serve mostly a singular purpose: to figure out who the biological parents are, to see who is going to be responsible for this child's life. In the cases where there is a paternity test whereby a child is not ascertained through birth, paternity test goes away because it's not there to try to lock people into relationships. It's not there to win the big family case. It's not there to prove infidelities. It's not there to judge your sexual prowess. It's not there for anything other than when this little one goes, when this little one is born, who's going to be financially responsible, who's going to take care of him, what kind of parenting plan. We want to make sure that both parents are in this child's life as much as possible because we want to do what's in the best interest of this child. It is not focused on the women that file these paternity tests. It is singularly focused on the children. And if you file a paternity test absent a genuine pregnancy test, then the whole purpose behind the paternity test is vanquished. There's no reason for it to exist. There is no court that I've ever seen take a paternity test and look at the names, the gender, the looks, the religion, how many boyfriends or girlfriends he had, whatever domestic violence, whatever he had. It's, are you the biological mother of this child? Who's the biological father? Do you agree you're the biological father? Yes, you're the parents. Now we have jurisdiction to make orders on custody and visitation, maybe child support. Let's see how this goes. The logical thread that you'd have to gain by saying what she's saying, have I opened the door to somehow hurt people, where a woman's right to file a paternity case can be used against her? If you file a frivolous paternity test, it should be used against you. I've literally heard of one case of a frivolous paternity test, and it's yours. I've never personally tried one because most women don't think to do stuff like that. Most women that bring paternity tests are genuinely pregnant. And if they're not pregnant, then great. They just break up with their boyfriend or whatever, if they can, if they're not married. She claims, so she goes on to say 30% of women who file these cases are wrong about who the father is, and that has nothing to do with anything. If my case stands, it means that any woman, even with proof, could face financial devastation just for filing. Here's why her case should stand. It stands for the proposition that you cannot victimize yourself, and weaponize paternity to get your hooks into another man, whether it be for financial gain or for other gain, and expect to get away with it. There's too much of that going around with respect to men and women. Too oftentimes, women can weaponize the legal system to get their hooks in a man, to have them pay for things that they shouldn't have to pay for, whether it be illegitimate sexual assault claims, bogus domestic violence claims, and now bogus paternity claims. If you are found to file a frivolous paternity suit, you should have the book thrown at you. And that's exactly what happened here. And it should stand for that proposition. This case in no way speaks to those persons who are legitimately pregnant who bring a paternity case for any reason under the sun. Laura Owens was not part of that group of people. She's in this separate group, this frivolous group. The non-frivolous group is and always will be protected regardless of what happens to Laura Owens. And that's what I got to say about that. All of this because a judge dazzled by, get the F out of here with Clayton's fame, couldn't understand my shit. Oh. Hey, Dominic, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
You hearing this shit, man?
Yeah, dude.
What do you think about all this?
Excuse my language, but it's just a shit show.
It's just like, oh. Look, you're a young man. All I'm going to say is, if somebody brings a paternity test against you, I would trust that you would be, willing to confirm the pregnancy. And once the pregnancy is confirmed, let me just ask your opinion. As a 25-year-old man, I think you're the same age as Clayton. What if you were getting amorous with a young lady through oral copulation, and she tells you that, well, I don't know how to tell you this. You wouldn't believe it if I told you, but son of a bitch, I'm pregnant. I'm just curious about what your next move would be.
I honestly wouldn't take her serious. I would probably just laugh it off and just be like, I can't take you serious. Like, there's no way that's even possible. So
what if she showed up to your house with a pregnancy test that was positive, and then you made her pee on the stick on a brand new one in front of you, and that also came out positive? What would be your first move?
I honestly, like, if I truly only got oral, then I wouldn't really be too worried. I would, just wait it out and have her take a what do you call them?
DNA.
DNA test. There you go.
So your line of thinking is exactly the same as Clayton Eckert's and any other man. It's like, bullshit, I got you pregnant. How's that even possible? We only did oral. I never stuck my penis in your vagina. I want a DNA test. I want a DNA test. Any guy would say that because it's completely illogical to think that you got someone pregnant off of oral sex. There's no effing way that happens, not even in the craziest episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah.
I wonder what the statistical odds. It's probably less than winning the lottery. Oh, I don't know what the odds would be. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying your line of thinking is exactly right. It's no different than any other man's would be because of logic. Now, this line, it just knocks me out. She couldn't see that my actions. Oh, all of this because a judge dazzled by Clayton's fame. You could dip out if you want, Dominic. Couldn't understand my autism. She couldn't see that my actions, shaped by a developmental disorder, weren't about deception. They were about fear and navigating uncertainty the only way I knew how, by withdrawing, by not going to appointments, by being mentally paralyzed. But the science that proved I was pregnant didn't matter. The only thing that I did was how I behaved. What is she showing this poster here for? So, justice for Clayton cult members and the grifty content creators who have created thousands of hours of content about my life, who turned a simple paternity case into a cruel, merciless witch hunt for the last year. I leave you with this. Oh, we're at the end, finally. How long is this? Oh my God. Okay. You've given the three men I have active restraining orders against granted by 3 judges in 2 states, a platform to rewrite history. Thanks to you and Judge Mata, they've gone from abusers to victims in your eyes, even though the court hasn't modified a single one of their orders. You even cheered as Maricini gave a 2.5-hour interview to one of the Justice for Clayton content creators, claiming it was his first time telling his story. First time he told it to a judge, twice, and the case file is over 200 pages long. You turned my suffering into your entertainment. You made a spectacle of my suffering, turned it into memes, followed my every move like I was something to be hunted. You didn't just stop at me. You dragged my family into it, even contacting my sister's workplace multiple times to tell them about Justice for Clayton. You followed my 78-year-old father's ex-girlfriend on social media. You made death threats against my mother, writing on Facebook, everyone shoot that C word, and posted what you believed to be her home address. You even called Adult Protective Services, falsely accusing me of abusing my own father. You sent prank welfare checks, not out of concern, but just so you could later obtain the body cam footage and harass me with it on Reddit and YouTube, so content creators can make videos and profit off my misery. You paid to manipulate search results so that when people looked up my name, they'd be sent to Justice for Clayton. That's not true, by the way. If you just type in Laura Owens, I don't even think that pops up. I'm going to put it into Google right now. Laura Owens. When I type in Laura Owens, I'm going to share my screen. This is what actually pops up. Ah, shit. I hit the wrong button. All right. I have typed in Laura Owens. Laura Owens. And there's this artist in the New Yorker. There's stuff about a 54-year-old lady out of Euclid, Ohio. I don't know who that's her spouse, I guess. Laura Owens Wikipedia. Whitney Museum of American Art. MOCA Geffen. I don't know what that is. It looks like an artist exhibit. Oh, there's her Medium. Again, not Justice for Clayton. This is her published articles on that website, Medium. Well, then you get 12 News. Laura Owens fake paternity case charges still being. That is a news article from 12 News. Has nothing to do with Justice for Clayton. Laura Owens and Karen TED Talk. I guess that probably is our Laura Owens. Another Wikipedia. This is again talking about the painter. I don't know who run. Is that her dad? Incredibly proud of her daughter Laura for standing up to cyber bullies. So this seems to be somebody defending Laura Owens. Laura Michelle Owens.com, the New Yorker, radical paintings of Laura Owens, the painter, a bunch of pictures, none of which are actually Laura Owens. There's this about page where you see pictures of Clayton Eckert and these other people that may be associated with other Laura Owens. That is page 1 of Google, so that's just not even factually accurate. Nowhere on this page, when I type in Laura Owens, do I get Justice for Clayton. Now, when I say, I don't know, that's when you start to see all of the content. When you type in specifically their names together, now you get all of the JFC stuff, the YouTube stuff. And even then, I don't even see Justice for Clayton popping. Oh, there it is, finally. But you got to type in Laura Owens with Clayton Eckert to get there. If you just type in Laura Owens' name, you get, well, nothing. That's what you get. That's it. What's up, cat lady? Thank you for the 5. I'm just here to support your grift. Well, thank you so much for, I guess you're welcome for my grifting. Katie with the 5 says, I'm really bothered that she's acting like she's the first autistic person to ever be on the stand in a court setting and there was no precedent. Let me tell you something about autistic folks that I have cross-examined on the stand. They don't get rattled very easily. The folks that I know have been autistic, when I cross-examine them or just examine them, period, as a lawyer in trial, are usually the best witnesses because they're so able to stick to the thread of conversation and you get the most relevant information with them. I mean, obviously there's variables and everything, but what she's claiming that she was so autistic that it explains her actions and that women are now demonized because of the way that this case turned out. And if if only they knew that she was autistic, it would somehow, I don't know, cure all of the ailments of this case. Jesus. Let me finish this before I get too far. Here, I'll share my screen again so you guys know what I'm reading. Okay. Adult Protective Services. You have called me a waste of skin and bones. You didn't stop to think about the human cost of what you were doing. You understood that if a lie is repeated enough times, it starts to sound like the truth. Yeah, I told you that. I've been saying that for months. That is how you buried the facts. What is that? Hey, Dominic, what's that music, man? Iron Rabbit, thank you so much for gifting 5 Tilted Lawyer memberships. I'm greatly appreciate that. And bitchin' ass logo right there. And Eckert has encouraged you. Eckert hasn't encouraged us to do shit. I'll tell you that much. Clayton hasn't, as far as I'm aware, had much, if any, contact with any of the people that cover this case. I know he's given a couple of interviews, but he's as far as I can tell, not been pushing any of these narratives, especially post judgment. Matter of fact, as far as people pushing Laura Owens narratives since the trial happened in June, it's been mostly Gingras and his Twitter account, and these articles on Medium that have come out espousing these absurd statements. So I don't blame Eckert for this. I think Eckert is pretty well at peace with everything that's going on right now, if you want my honest opinion. Ignoring the protection order I had against him, which clearly stated defendant shall not communicate or post untrue or harassing comments regarding plaintiff online. And he hasn't. I've seen the statements that he's given online. None of them violate that order, and shall not cause others to communicate or post untrue or harassing statements, which, as far as I can tell, nobody has communicated to post untrue or harassing comments, at least that I'm aware. And I'm not talking about online trolls, about Laura Owens. You cheered as he appeared on the Charlie Kirk show, where both he and Kirk stated that I needed to be prosecuted, and you are being prosecuted, and you do need to be prosecuted, given what I know happened in the heat of this case. On a different show, he openly admitted the community of people that keeps uncovering and supporting me is tracking her every movement. It's not against the law to track the legal system and public records if they are curious about your case. You have turned yourself into a much maligned minor celebrity. I think, honestly, people probably know you a lot better than they do Clayton Eckert, because of the narratives that have been espoused by you and your attorney. And if you're going to do that, then people are going to look into you and your life unabashedly, and they're going to the legal extent that they're able to do that. In yet another interview, he brazenly said about the protection order I have against him. I got to the point where I was like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to test this. I dare. If the police show up and try to put me in cuffs for her, this is going to be a bigger stink than you realize. I'm going to fight this tooth and nail and say this is based on lies. Then he added, so I kind of got to the point where I'm like, no, wait, this is all based on a lie. So this protective order to me doesn't even exist. I don't really consider it valid whatsoever, which, to be fair, if the findings that were made at trial were made prior to the issuance of the OOP back in, I think it was October of the prior year, then that OOP would not have ever been issued. So he's not correct in that it's not a valid order, because it was issued. It's an order. It's valid. But he is sort of right when he says that if there was a finding that all this was based on a lie, it would have never been granted, which is true. He says, I'm 5'5", I weigh 85 pounds. Laura, that's not healthy, man. That's not healthy. I really, really want you to get some help. That's 48 pounds gone since I learned I miscarried last November. I barely recognize myself anymore. My skin is pale. My eyes are sunken. I look like I've aged 2 decades in a single year, something you've cruelly pointed out on social media. And as much as it hurts to admit it, you're right. I see it too. I see a woman whose body has been ravaged by relentless stress and fear, a woman stripped down to almost nothing. I see someone who has been pushed to her breaking point because of you. because of the parasocial obsession this case has fueled. I have a final statement to Laura Owens that after I'm done reading this, I have something to say to this lady. All I wanted was clarity, a plan, some kind of path forward where everyone involved could feel at peace. But instead of trying to understand that, you judged me, tore apart my every move, and decided you had me all figured out. I don't think that anybody does have Laura Owens figured out. I think that's the reason why she's such a curiosity to the general public, is that we can't figure out why she's carrying on this way. I thought we were going to get answers today, but we're not. You saw hesitation and labeled it manipulation. You saw fear and called it dishonesty. But you never once considered that maybe I was just doing the best I could in a mind that was overwhelmed by the weight of decisions that felt impossible. I wasn't playing games. I was surviving. I wasn't calculating. I was struggling. I'm coming to terms with what being on the spectrum means. And it's scary for me. But I've faced harder things before, like the last year. I've got this. And here's the truth. I'd rather be me with all my struggles and flaws and my autism than be any one of you. I'd rather carry the weight of this diagnosis of being misunderstood than live with the kind of cruelty you've shown. So I leave you with this. I hope you find out why you took pleasure in tearing down a stranger. I hope you figure out why you spent thousands of hours analyzing my behavior, making videos, and profiting off my pain. And I hope that when you meet someone who doesn't act the way you expect, you stop and ask yourself, maybe there's more going on here than I know, because the next person might not survive what you put them through. I almost didn't. All right, Laura. Okay. I've got something to say. So I am a small-time YouTuber. I got like 17,500 subscribers or something like that. And when I first learned about your case, you and I emailed each other back and forth. I told you that I didn't give a shit about what was in there, had no idea about anything or anyone, about what people were saying about you or Clayton. I honestly thought that you were the sympathetic figure when I first took on this case. And then I started reading all of the nonsense, and you could see in real time as I'm going through evidence piece by piece. I spent like 4 hours on a live stream dissecting it all, and I was flabbergasted at what I saw. Why did I become an attorney? Because I believed in my naivete that I would be chasing justice for the rest of my career. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it isn't. But my fascination with this case came purely with this respect that I've had clients that I've represented, just like Clayton, that have been the victim of females attempting to use the legal system to manipulate them into doing certain things, into manipulating the legal system into keeping them away from their children, and various other ways that it's been weaponized. This was a prime example of that. And it was also a startling display of what happens when we don't allow it to happen. And I think that what honestly happened was people, all of these Justice for Clayton people, I promise you, were probably in a line by a landslide on your side at the beginning of all of this. I didn't pick any sides. I was going to fall on whatever side the evidence caused me to fall. And I gave you an opportunity to come on this show and talk to me about it. I gave you an opportunity to tell your story, but with the understanding that I was going to just rely on the truth. Never once did you ever take me up on that offer to come and tell your side of the story? I suspect because I was probably going to ask you hard questions. Matter of fact, when I started asking you hard questions, you directed me to Gingras. And I asked Gingras my hard questions, and he, in a very condescending, dismissive way, gave unsatisfactory answers. And he, in a low-level, lightweight way, try to shake me down and prevent me from talking about the case. So at that point, I was definitely going to talk about this case. Had nothing to do with you. Had nothing to do with you. But here you are. You're claiming to be autistic. I don't know if you're autistic or not. I don't know if have you been diagnosed the same way that I've been diagnosed? So my daughter was diagnosed autistic. I took a test and it said I definitely have Asperger's. I've never been formally diagnosed with that. It would make all the sense in the world to me that I was actually somewhere on the spectrum, but I don't care to know. I don't have a need to know. It's not prevented me from doing anything in my life. Whatever my symptoms, yeah, I was a weird kid. I had issues, but it's never prevented me from telling the truth. My daughter, who is severely autistic, it's never prevented her from telling the truth. If anything, she's overly truthful with everything. I mean, that might just be the nature of being 5. But she has a steely focus in her, a curiosity for truth and for knowledge that I don't know if it's a symptom of her autism or not, but it makes her unique. If it's truly the case that you are autistic, it would be a mistake to use that diagnosis to try to justify your actions in the way that you've handled yourself in this case. You're lashing out at all of these people that have, as far as I've met a lot of good people. I've met Dave Neal. I met Megan Fox, Bruce, Brad, Lauren Knighty, the Schnitzel Ninja, Murder Mittens, Just Jen. I met, no, I think Sarcasm was before Laura, but I've met a lot of really good people from the JFC community. And some of those people aren't even in the JFC community, but all of them had one thing in common. They just wanted to get to the bottom of the truth. The truth has set them free. If it is your spiritual decision to press forward with this lie, when all of the evidence is presented, and this isn't like a political debate, it's not like you're just going to keep saying it over and over and people are going to start believing you at some point. That ship has long since sailed, and it don't work like that in the legal world. It just doesn't. I read that you're 5'5" and you weigh about 85 pounds, and that makes me worried for you. I read that you barely recognize yourself. Your eyes are sunken. You allude to people cruelly pointing out on social media that you appear to be sickly. And I don't doubt that there are people out there, hundreds probably, that are trolling you and getting in under your skin and causing you to double down and triple down and quadruple down on these core beliefs that you've held on to since 2023. And I know that you're not here asking for approval and all these other things that you say. You're not asking for sympathy, and I'm not here to offer you any sympathy. I'm here just to simply offer you a fundamental truth. You're not going to find peace with this case. You're not going to find peace with yourself. You're not going to find peace in your diagnosis until you learn how to let this case go. But what letting this case go means is not you continuing to perpetrate a lie. What letting this case go means is coming to grips with the reality of the truth of this case. Even if there was a modicum of you that believed genuinely that you were pregnant, your actions that have now been documented by I don't want to say the entire world, but by thousands of people, have led others to believe that you knew in your heart of hearts that you were not pregnant when you filed this paternity test. And unless you take ownership of what's really going on with you, you're not going to find peace with this case. There's only one path towards peace. There's only one path towards freedom from this case, and that's for you to go headfirst into the truth and lean into it. If you do that, I promise you, there is thousands of people that will embrace you with open arms and appreciate the truth while criticizing whatever was going on in the past and be willing to welcome you and forgive. And I don't know if they'll forget, but they will forgive and accept that you are a flawed person that has had been on one hell of a journey. And they will see you differently. And there will no longer be anything to criticize. There will no longer be anything to troll. Once you acknowledge and lean into those things that they're trolling you about and acknowledge them as true, then what's left? They took their pound of flesh, it's gone. And now the healing can begin. But you're carrying on with this troll of a lawyer, Gingras, who's allowing you to continue. I don't know if he's allowing you or if he's convincing you to carry on with these stupid arguments that ask 100 different attorneys. 99 of them will tell you that this is bullshit. The one that won't tell you that is Gingras, and that's the guy that you're paying. Dude is a snake. Dude is taking you for a ride. Dude is lying to you. Gingras knows in his heart of hearts, he has to know that this is a failed attempt at an appeal. He's making money off of it, sure, good for him. But he's doing it at the expense of your mental health. I'm not here to try to criticize and continue to throw fuel onto the fire. The universe has taken care of that better than I ever could on my own. I'm just going to leave you with that. Just enough of this. Enough. It's enough. It's time. It is time to let it go. And if you're genuinely autistic, then, I don't think that's really anybody's business, but it's not going to justify what you think it's going to justify. It might. Matter of fact, just because you're autistic doesn't mean that you're like this outcast, like you got this mental deficiency. There are people that are autistic who are brilliant human beings. You're just wired different. That's all. It is not a social impediment for a lot of folks. For some it is, but for most it isn't. I don't know if that's even true. For some it isn't. I don't know if it's for most. I pray that my daughter, who's 5 years old now, as she grows up, she's going to have a quirky personality, but I pray that she is able to grow up and find her footing early in life and use her superpowers to her advantage, the way that so many others before her have that have had similar conditions. And so that's what I have to offer you, Laura. I don't wish you any ill will. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be okay. I don't condone anything that anybody's doing to troll you on social media or go after your family or whatever other crazy stuff has happened, to the extent that all those things are true. I'm not even sure if you think that all those things are true or not. Maybe some of those calls for welfare checks were genuinely made by people that are close to you that care and love you, care about you and love you. Not everybody's out to get you. I think it's time you start reevaluating the people that are close to you in your life and start making some decisions, because you're going to be alive for a long time and it's worth it to figure out who is who. And that's all I got to say about Miss Owens for that. Oh, yeah. Karen Carson, thank you so much for the 5. She says she acts like anyone, including Judge Mata, would have guessed she was autistic, and that would impossible to assume about. Well, you can't make assumptions like that in law unless there was a formal diagnosis that was presented to the court. You cannot consider autism as a possibility because there was absolutely no evidence for it. Even if you were to be like a straight up medical doctor sitting on the bench, and even if you suspected that she might have had autistic symptoms sitting on the stand, you cannot use that a bit of information in your final judgment, because you don't have any other information to validate that it was a legal, valid diagnosis. And so you must accept her as she comes, which is with the evidence that's presented. And at no time prior to any of this, and I'm not even sure if it would have really mattered, to be honest. I just don't think it would have mattered. Hey, Kate, thank you so much for the 10. Says, what do you think the outcome of the county attorney's investigation will be? Lots of pressure on them, but will it go anywhere? Yeah, I think she's going to be charged. And I think that they are willing to offer her an out. I think that the deal is going to be no jail time, but you're going to have to provide restitution in the family law case, and they're going to put her like on a schedule. Maybe they put her on probation. Hey, my mom's the tilted mom is in the, what's up, Mom? He said, well said. I don't even remember what I said. My mom doesn't think that I was autistic. I told her that. She's like, bullshit, you're autistic. It's like, well, how would you even know? It was the 80s. Nobody was even talking about autism back then. I guess it just doesn't matter. I think that the DA is going to find, well, they're going to try to offer her a plea. I think they're going to charge her with perjury. They may charge her with illegal extortion. That's the one that I'm on the fence with. But they're going to charge her with something. I don't think this is just going away. There's way too much, and most of the time, I don't think that the public really makes much of a difference in charging decisions with the DA. But I think this case was so egregious and so salacious in detail that it would behoove the DA, who's already classified this case as extremely unusual. It would behoove them to file charges. Now, I don't know if they're going to go for prison time in this case. Maybe it's something like 5 years of probation, pay restitution, whatever the family court awarded, and then they'll call it square. I don't think Laura's going to do jail time this. But if they're feeling squirrely, I guess you never know. You never know what they might do. Nothing like it says faking autism is vile. But that's the thing. I don't know if she's faking autism or not. I don't know if she is. There's certainly things that she's said in email that lead me to believe that she has mental illness, that she fixates on things the way that you might do if you were autistic. And I'm not a doctor and I'm not pretending to be one. I'm a doctor of law. I got a JD, Juris Doctor. I don't have an MD. And so I'm not going to be the guy to say that, oh, she's definitely faking it. I don't effing know, man. I'm just saying that even if she did have autism, that doesn't, she is a high functioning person. She is an adult. She knew better. She put people in peril with her actions. And I think that she needs to own up for it. Now, if she has narcissistic personality disorder to go along with her autism, that might explain her fixation into keeping with this bogus narrative to her ultimate peril. And if that's the case, that's something completely different. Gene Quintolani says, what do you think about the other two gentlemen that she has restraining orders against? Well, I've had contact with both of them to certain degrees. I'm aware of both of their cases. And I am of the opinion that the orders of protection that were issued against the two of them were not really issued on tangible evidence. If I recall, I think one of them was an agreed upon, look, I will agree to be put under a stay away order against you. I don't remember if that was Gillespie or Maricini. I don't remember. And I think one of them was litigated. I don't know. I haven't seen the transcripts or what came about in trial. So for all I know, it might be a valid restraining order. I don't think it is. I've heard the narrative of him giving an interview, and just what he describes is similar to what I see from a lot of people, that they just find themselves in a jackpot with a girl that they're dating. And then the girl starts accusing them of sexual assault or sexual battery or some kind of verbal abuse or physical abuse, and they're faking it. And they get so scared that they don't know how to litigate it, and they end up with domestic violence restraining orders against them. And in the worst case scenarios, they end up in jail because they're convicted of misdemeanor or felony counts of DV. But knowing what I know about Owens, I'm inclined to believe the other two gentlemen in their accounts of what they claim happened, because, there's just a pattern of behavior between Owens and the men that she's dated, and they've unified in their stories. So I haven't looked into it enough to make a decision one way or the other, but I'm inclined, I guess you could say I'm presumed to believe the men in this case. Hey, Lost Cake, thank you so much for the 5. Says, Omar, to your lovely daughter, welcome to Aspie World. She was very, very lucky ones. We consider it a gift. May it be a gift to you too. I believe Cakes, I think it's going to be a gift to her. That little girl is so, she's a special little girl. She really, really is. Katie with the 5 says, thank you for getting your daughter care. My parents didn't have the tools in the 90s, but just now unpacking my autism in my late 20s has been awful. There's definitely a world where people with autism, they feel different. I've felt that way my entire life. I just felt like no other person, unable to connect with people socially, unable to reconcile my personality with the rest of the world. And it would have made a lot of sense to me if in my teenage years or my younger years, oh, obviously this kid's on the spectrum. I mean, now it's too late because I am what I am and I'm pretty good with who I am. But for my daughter, I'm so glad that she has help and resources. And I'll tell you, man, that little girl, she definitely has superpowers. She doesn't forget anything. She's got like a photographic recall of everything and an ability to recall and retain stories and to tell stories. Her creativity is off the charts. She is a special little girl for sure. Um, oh, yeah, yeah. Rebel Donnie says, having children in my family, especially one who was at one point nonverbal and don't act like LO. LO's use of autism to change the narrative pissed me off. Yeah, it's going to piss a lot of people off in this in the autism community because people genuinely have this and it has genuinely impaired their ability to interact in society. In some cases, stripped them of the ability to speak altogether. And to justify what she's done with an unverified autism diagnosis, I can understand why people are upset with that. Bruce chimes in and says that the only good thing from this new Medium vlog is hearing the stories from people in the community and themselves and their kids. Yeah, because the autism community is a growing one, and they're becoming more and more aware of who they are as people and why they are as people, and it's a good thing that they don't have to feel ostracized or just, oh, I don't know, I just got this quirky personality. I guess I'm just different. Nobody likes me, but it just is who I am. But no, there's this whole community of people that are just wired differently. The wiring in your brain is a little bit different. It's just a little bit different. And if you learn how to use it as a mechanism to your success, you will have superpowers. That generally seems to be the rule with people with autism. Some are more fortunate than others. Some have less severe symptoms than others, but it is I'll tell you what, I know more about autism than I ever thought I'd ever know. And it is a tight community, is what I'll tell you. As a Turdad Durakshani, I know I screwed that up, says, I am what I am. Sweet potatoes. Yes, ma'am. Nothing like it says, oh, it's going to make a lot of people angry. I'm very angry. My son has autism. My grandsons both were diagnosed on the spectrum. You don't get to use autism for your excuse. Yeah, it's just such a bad, naive move to try to put that out in the universe as a possible defense for your malfeasance. With that, folks, I got to go get home to my girls, and I spent an hour 49 minutes on this, which is 49 minutes longer than I thought I would. But now is the time where I have to cut this short. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you to Dominic for joining me on a last minute basis and helping me out with some of the comments. Thank you for all the moderators in there that have been keeping everybody in check and the off chance that some of y'all have been getting out of hand. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Stay safe on a Tuesday night, and I will see you guys later on in the week.